Welcome to Arlington Public News. I'm Brenda Mahoney.
And I'm Paul Werlin. Thanks for joining us here at the historic Jefferson Cutter House in Arlington Center and home to the Cyrus Dallin Museum and the Arlington Chamber of Commerce. In this edition of APN, we all know the Jefferson Cutter House. Tonight, we'll meet the man and the Cutter family. And we'll take you inside a search and rescue training mission with the Arlington Fire Department.
We'll look at the history of the railroad in Arlington paving the way for the Minuteman Bikeway. That and more up next. Stay with us. Classroom assignments have been sent out and back-to-school items are on sale everywhere. Will the Arlington schools be ready in time? And Arlington says goodbye to a dedicated public servant.
James Milan has those stories in the snapshot. James?
Getting the classroom ready for the start of the school year is always a challenge, but some public school buildings in Arlington have a bit more work to do than usual. Stratton Elementary School is coming to the end of its year-long remodel with a punch list of items that remain undone. And Thompson Elementary School's new addition is waiting on flooring to connect the existing building to the addition before students can start classes there. Those projects and others were taken up by the Permanent Town Building Committee on August 15th. They met at Stratton after touring the $10 million school updates. Improvements include a first-ever kitchen, new media center, updated hallways, LED lighting, and security sensors. Contractors say the interior will be finished, but landscaping and reconstruction of the field where Modular sat will have to continue into the fall. With delays on the addition at Thompson fresh in their minds, committee members are being extra diligent about the timeline for the 6th classroom Hardy addition. Project managers assured the committee that construction could start next March and wrap up within the projected 8 months. The only thing that may slow it down is the need for more money. Town meeting approved $3.5 million for the project this past spring.
We did a significant amount of due diligence as a committee, but it still is only projection at that point, even if it's informed or educated projection. So I think we will we're going to have a special town meeting either in December or January for zoning matters, but it'll give us an opportunity to look at funding if need be.
We all understand the budget and the constraints, and I don't feel as though anyone is looking to make this a prize project or, there isn't very much frills attached to it. We've all kept that in mind in working towards a design.
The Gibbs building is still in the early stages of redevelopment. Contractors are in the midst of demolition and abatement and will have a clearer timeline for the construction once that is complete in a few weeks. Over the last decade, there may have been no more recognizable Arlington public servant than Dasty, the police canine. For these 10 years, Dasty has teamed up with his partner, Patrol Officer Mike Hogan. The two worked high-profile cases like the Marathon bombing, but Dasty was just as comfortable getting belly rubs from kids at the HRC camp. Canine units from around the state gathered at police department headquarters to honor their fallen comrade this week. In January of this year, the department welcomed Aiko, a 2-year-old canine who will continue Dasty's work with Officer Hogan. Brenda, I can tell you that Aiko has some big paws to fill.
Well, I'm sure Aiko and Officer Hogan will do a great job. Well, it's wonderful to be here at the historic Jefferson Cutter House. The building is iconic here in Arlington, but we wondered about the people behind the wooden brick. APN reporter Caitlin Cree introduces us to Jefferson Cutter and the Cutter family.
The Cutters arrived here in this area of Menotomy, West Cambridge, Arlington, in the middle of the 17th century from England. And most of them operated mills along the Mill Brook that runs from the Arlington Heights Reservoir down here to the Mystic Lakes. Jefferson was the 7th generation of his particular family to operate the mill. He was born in 1803 up in Arlington Heights. Now, the significance of Jefferson Cutter is that the milling industry along Mill Brook, there was, and most of them were operated by the Cutter family, 26 mills along that Mill Brook with their mill ponds. So it was the first industrialization of this area. And of course, the the Industrial Revolution took place, of course, sometime after, but it was these mills that were the significant mode of business in the communities. Well, Jefferson built a house in 1820 when he got married. It used to be up in Arlington Heights, where the Myrack Chevrolet showroom is now located. And they had 5 children, but the wife died at the birth of the 5th child. So he got married again and had 6 more, so he needed a larger house, and hence he built this one in about 1830, 1831. The family sold the property to private owners, and eventually John Myrack of the Myrack Chevrolet Company bought it in 1979. He was about to tear this down along with 2 other historic houses when the town asked him not to tear this one, because this is the last, as they said, the federal period salt box design. He said, fine, it's yours. Then he helped the town bring it down on a flatbed truck until in October 9th and 10th, 1989. To great fanfare. There must have been 10,000 people out here in front of the intersection of Mass Ave and Pleasant Street and Mystic Street. Bets were being taken that the house would bounce or slide. Neither happened, and I truthfully can tell you that because I was out here in the corner watching the whole thing. And it became a visitor center for the town of Arlington, which it still somewhat is. Then the Chamber of Commerce took office space in the upstairs rooms. And then in 1998, the Cyrus Dallin Art Museum started taking up residence. 2016, the town restored the building. When they were taking some of the bad rotted clapboards off, they found out that it had yellow paint. So now, instead of having the white paint that we've had since it was brought down here, we now have it in yellow paint with green shutters. It's kind of unique because now it really stands out here in Whittemore Park.
Well, Paul, you know, it really is wonderful that we have this historic home, beautiful preservation, and it really is a testament to carrying on someone's family's history as well.
It really is. I mean, I love this house. I'm an architecture buff. I've always liked the house, but it really makes me think of the house in a new way, because it's not just an historic house. It really was someone's family home, not just a building. So it's nice to see that.
That's right.
The solar eclipse is almost here. Astronomy Nights organizer Jeff Alexander will be watching here in Arlington, and you're invited.
Well, before commuters took to the bikeway, trains carried workers along the same path. And Lake Street is the next bikeway intersection that's getting an update. That and more when we come back.
It's Susan Karp, the Executive Director of the Arlington Council on Aging and the host for Living Out Loud. Don't be left behind. Keep moving. Give us a call for your transportation needs. We have a Council on Aging van as well as a dial-a-ride taxi service. So think about it. Are you going to wait for someone to pick you up, or are you going to pick up the phone and give us a call? 781-316-3400, Council on Aging Transportation Services.
Part of the Minuteman Bikeway success story, traffic jams and safety concerns have become an issue at the Lake Street crossing, used by pedestrians and bicyclists. A committee has been formed looking at solutions to ease travel for all users and changes around the way.
On a recent weekday morning, just after rush hour, we saw frequent stops by cars and some bike path users crossing Lake Street without giving drivers much warning. Various transportation and safety agencies in town, along with bicycle advisory members and pedestrian groups, have been working together to come up with solutions. Initial plans to improve the intersection with electronic signaling and more visible markings were presented at a recent public meeting.
So the idea is to separate the modes of travel and clearly define where people should be going, whether they're in a car or bicyclists or pedestrians. And that's important because everyone's going at different speeds. The project as it's proposed today includes an improved crossing at the Minuteman Bikeway crossing at Lake Street, along with a full traffic signal. All new traffic signal equipment at the Brooks Avenue intersection. And that's really important to ensure that the two signals operate as one system and are communicating with each other. For the bicycle signals, what we'd likely be proposing here is what's shown here. And really that's a red, yellow, and green indication, but instead of a circular indication, it's actually a bicycle symbol. So those bike symbols, signals, would be along the bike path parallel to those pedestrian signals. And well, it's somewhat new. It's not unprecedented. Other towns and cities in the area are using these already. Most notably, even along the Minuteman Bikeway in Lexington at the Bedford Street crossing, those bicycle signals are already in place.
In addition to adding and syncing signals, the 12-foot wide bike path would expand to 25 feet as it approached Lake Street, allowing bicycles and pedestrians more room and separate lanes while waiting and crossing. Concerns about continued traffic backups in the area and making sure cyclists get a heads up as they approach the intersection were common themes when it was time for residents to speak up.
If you're a resident in the general neighborhood, you can see that those that live in Kelwin Manor or those that live on the opposite side, there's a lot of signs up that say do not enter, and that's because why? We have traffic. And I would anticipate that the town would make that infrastructure upgrade to have a coordinated system where your lights from the Lake Street intersection to Brooks to this are all in sync. If they're not in sync, this will not work.
Ultimately, the coordination with the Lake Street Mass Ave signal was not recommended to be included as part of the system.
I don't think that capture area nor that release area are big enough to not end up with a pile of bikes trying to get around each other, and then the last ones running into the first pedestrians, for example, as they re-emerge.
It seems to me that providing the cyclists with some warning about when the light is going to turn red would be extremely helpful and would dramatically increase your compliance.
I'm asking that, at least during the peak hours, for some predictability to crossing so that, if I'm a quarter mile out in the path, I know that I could slow down, group up with other bicyclists so I could catch a green, because that's the problem today, right? There's chaos. You approach the intersection, everybody has to stop-ish. But having the ability to know that it's going to be green, so I could speed up a little bit and catch a green would be a way to, through making it a more appropriate experience for everybody to kind of get where they need to be based on their abilities.
Public comments will be incorporated as the team refines its design. Those plans will be shared at the next public meeting to be scheduled for late September.
Well, the trail crossing at Lake Street has a long history. It was one of the original stops for the railroad that passed through Arlington beginning in 1845 when it was still West Cambridge. As part of our summer series on the 25th anniversary of the Minuteman Bikeway, we decided to delve a bit deeper into its life before the bicycle took over. Nearly several hundred users travel the Minuteman Bikeway in Arlington each day, a growing amount since its opening in 1992. But long before cyclists pedaled their two wheels, there was the Iron Horse.
It was a major event every afternoon when that train came by. Clickety-clack, clickety-clack, the old-fashioned sound of a train coming down a railroad track was a sound you could hear for a half a mile. So it was a really exciting sound. Trains were a big deal. It was about big iron. It was about power.
That power has had a lasting impression on Steve Wenzel from when he lived across from the tracks as a young boy on Summer Street in the late 1940s and early 50s. That show of American strength capturing Stuart Brorson's attention too.
Because they're large and very picturesque machines. They look like a huge beast of some sort, which is why they were called iron horses, because it really looks like they're moving pieces, like there are legs or something moving.
Pointing out the physical pieces left from that magical time.
So those are there to capture the wheels from rolling.
The president of the Arlington Historical Society says Arlington, known as West Cambridge during the start of the railroad, couldn't escape the excitement spreading across America.
Railroad fever. In the 1830s, the whole country was caught up in railroad fever.
And it was the prospect of making money that had entrepreneurs fired up to bring in the first steam engines in 1845, coming from Charlestown through current Arlington to Lexington.
Any town that wanted to have an economy and participate in the modern era needed to have a railroad going to it so that goods could be shipped in and out, as well as passengers shipped in and out.
Items such as coal, ice from Spy Pond, manure for the many farms in town, and a way for people to get to and from Boston.
Somewhere in the middle 1800s, one of the railroads that purchased the Lexington and West Cambridge gave us tracks so that we could actually run our trains directly to North Station.
There were 3 original train stations in Arlington.
So there was Lake Street Station, there was Arlington Center Station, there was the Brattle Street Station, and those were the 3 that were built with the original railway, and then soon there came the Arlington Heights Station, which is where we are now, which would have been right there.
None still stand today, but these old photographs showing how developers matched the largesse of the railroad to the grandiosity of the stations. Changes were afoot in the 1950s that made these tracks here at Whitmore Park in Arlington merely a decorative piece due to something else coming down the pike.
This is the railroad going over a highway overpass. This is Route 128. Steam engines were phased out in the middle 1950s, and so this photograph is, and it's sort of it's a premonition of what's going to happen to the railroad, because there's the railroad, cars are soon going to take over everything, and it's going to drive the railroad business basically into the ground.
But before that, track owners Boston and Lowell and then the MBTA tried to keep the line going, replacing steam engines with new so-called Bud cars.
These were self-propelled diesel cars, and they were supposed to sort of displace the dirty old steam engines with something new and modern as a way to compete against automobiles.
It was a snowstorm in 1977 that literally put a stop to the trains, the T eventually pulling the last commuter cars out of service. The railroad era in Arlington came to an end. That is, until rail-to-trail enthusiasts and town planners convinced the state in 1992 that cycling was a form of transportation. And with several hundred using the Minuteman Bikeway each day, this 177-year-old path is alive once again. Brenda Mahoney, Arlington Public News. Well, Paul, it's really been a fantastic summer of taking time out on the bike path, really getting to know the bike path and taking a little bit of a further look, deeper rather, into its history as well as the rail trail. It's been a great time.
Yeah, it's really nice to see that the bike path is now 25 years old, and what a success story it's been. So nice that we've been able to highlight it, and I'm sure everybody in Arlington really loves it.
That's right, and its popularity is certainly still growing.
Training with the Arlington Fire Department, what does it take?
And checking out the eclipse right here in Arlington. That and more when we come back.
It's Susan Karp, the Executive Director of the Arlington Council on Aging and host of Living Out Loud. So oftentimes we talk about programs that don't seem to be inclusive. Well, we actually have our LGBT senior program that occurs on Thursday evenings about once or twice a month. If you'd like more information about our LGBT programs, please give us a call, 781-316-3400. We're here for everyone in Arlington 60 and older.
Firefighters have to be ready for the toughest situations. But how do you train for something so dramatic as a search and rescue mission into a house full of smoke? Here in Arlington, a house set for demolition offers the perfect opportunity to test the firefighters' skills in a demanding environment. APN reporter Mitch McLeod suited up and joined the department for their recent training mission.
Hot and heavy are the only ways to describe firefighters' gear. I wasn't quite sure what I had signed myself up for, but after getting geared up, Captain Dan Kerr introduced us to the mission.
All right, so we're the search and rescue team. We're gonna do a directed search. I'm gonna pop that front door, gonna go in the front door. We're gonna do a right-hand search. Your right hand is gonna go on the wall. Okay. I'm gonna use my thermal imaging camera to scan the room, see if I see any down people. Get to the front door. You turn around, you make sure everybody's good. You good? Good. Paul, you good? Mitch, you good? All right, let's all click on together. All right, let's go do search and rescue.
Somewhere in the house was a training dummy, overcome by smoke. Captain Kerr led the search using a thermal camera, while firefighter Paul Stanton and I searched the rooms.
This is a bigger area. I can watch them the whole time on my stick. All
All right, nothing in here. We're gonna do the last bedroom. Mitch, why don't you go ahead and try to see if you see anything in there. Okay. All right. I got a person. You got a person? Yeah. All right, come over here. I get on my radio, I say, Engine 2 calling command. I have located a person.
After the search and rescue drill, we moved on to using the fire department's arsenal of forcible entry tools.
You see that? Yeah, it is over here. Again, use this thing, make a purchase point. Right, and then you start using the hook to pull it down.
Including my own unsuccessful attempt at pulling down a wall.
If you now take it and put it down in, yep.
Yep. The firefighters were unburdened by the heavy gear and the stifling heat, as their training has prepared them to perform strenuous tasks with seemingly little effort.
Put your tool down, sometimes you can kind of just...
Paired with their demanding training, the equipment used by the AFD gives them the upper hand. Kerr introduced us to some of the tech that allows his men to stay safe while performing their duty.
If I don't move for 25 seconds, or any of us with these SCBAs on, self-contained breathing apparatus, it's called a pass device will go off. If you right here by yourself pulling a ceiling and the ceiling comes down on your head and now you're trapped on the ground, 1,000 things can happen. We do what's called a mayday. This goes off. This is just it's the first alarm. 10 seconds later, it gets even to a higher pitch noise. And now firefighters outside can have a better chance of finding me because they can hear that sound going off.
With the training that Arlington Fire Department does, what do you think is the most effective thing, training exercise-wise, for your firefighters?
It's definitely getting the houses. The contractors are nice enough at times this house is coming down next week, so before they knock it down, they're nice enough to let us come in and train, and we can do a lot of different things from search and rescue like we did today in a smoke simulated house to cutting holes, vertical ventilation, just all types of stuff that we would do on a real fire scene we can do in these houses. It's all training, and when you get into the high stress situations, you always revert back to your training, whether or not you realize it or not. So that's why it's so important to get these houses and train every day.
After spending the morning with the Arlington Fire Department, I'll make sure to thank the firefighters I come across next for the constant work they put in to keep us all safe. For Arlington Public News, this is Mitch McLeod.
Well, we're thankful for firefighters for keeping up their training and for inviting APN along. If you're looking for a great place to view the eclipse with a knowledgeable astronomer on hand, we've got both here in Arlington. APN reporter Mitch McLeod caught up with the organizers of Astronomy Nights, and they give us a preview of the eclipse and extend an invitation to join them on Monday, the 21st, to view the big event.
So Arlington Astronomy Nights is a series that I've been running for probably about 10 years now. I run a series over the course of the summer. We come up maybe 4 or 5 times each year up here to Robbins Farm Park, and we set up a bunch of telescopes. Anybody in town who wants to come by can come take a look. Each summer, as I'm planning out my schedule, I'll look at charts to see what's going to be in the sky at any given time, and I'll try to plan my evenings so that one night maybe you've got a full moon, which is really beautiful to look at with a telescope. There's really nothing like the sound that somebody makes the first time that they see the rings of Saturn, that wow moment. This is a solar eclipse, so what happens is the moon happens to line up from where we're looking, happens to line up to be right in front of the sun, so it'll block out the sun's light. As the eclipse begins, the first contact at 1:28 p.m. is when the side of the moon will start touching, not actually touching, but crossing in front of the edge of the sun. So it will move in and it'll slowly move across. It reaches the maximum, I want to say at around 250 or so. It'll cover about 63% of the sun from here, and then it'll start to move off, and just before 4 p.m. it'll move off the outer edge. It's very important to know that you should not look at it. You really have to be very careful about that, even with the moon in front of it. So right here on the front of it is a solar filter, and what this does is it blocks out more than 99% of the light that comes through the sun. Very important, it's not just the visible light, but also the ultraviolet light, because the ultraviolet light will damage your eyes just as much as the visible light will. So the light will come in through here filtered, it gets magnified in the telescope, and then look right through here and you get a beautiful image of what's going on in front of the sun. There'll also be other options. If you have eclipse glasses, make sure that they're from a reputable vendor. You can use pinhole projection. That's another good option. Whether you've created one with a box, or sometimes people will use a long tube to get a bigger image, or even just projecting on the ground.
Jeff will be set up at Robbins Farm Park at 1 p.m. on the 21st, and he encourages all those who want to join to stop by. As always, stay safe and have fun while viewing this natural phenomenon. For Arlington Public News, this is Mitch McLeod.
Boy, great work there. Well, for more information about Arlington Astronomy Nights, visit arlingtonastronomy.org and check out acmi.tv/news to find directions and resources on creating one of your own solar viewers. And here at ACMi, we're very excited for one of our own. Longtime member and friend of ACMi, Dick Coolish, is joining his fellow amateur telescope makers of Boston for a road trip into the path of the full solar eclipse.
Yeah, we're going to Missouri. It's a compromise. The weather's a little better than being further east, and the travel is not as extensive as going to Wyoming or Oregon or things like that. So we've arranged to stay at like a golf club resort, and we'll have a place kind of out on the lawn somewhere to watch the eclipse.
Well, we wish Dick luck and bring back lots of photos and stories for us.
You know, right behind us here in Arlington Center, the weekly farmers market, which is very popular, is in full swing.
That's right.
We leave you now with the sound of ACMi's own Alan Kaufman, producer and host of In the Tradition. Alan is entertaining shoppers this afternoon right here as we speak, and throughout the market season. You can check out our latest segments and newscasts on the web at acmi.tv/news. And don't forget to like us on Facebook and Twitter at Arlington Public.
Well, it's been great to be here in Arlington Center with so many of our neighbors. And if you'd like to be a part of Arlington Public News and ACMi, email us at news@acmi.tv or stop by the studio at 85 Park Ave. I'm Brenda Mahoney.
And I'm Paul Werlin. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.